from both the intelligence units and the human trafficking unit. The task force cannot say enough great things about Craig and his team, so looking forward to your presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really encouraged to see so many people here today to learn about human trafficking, about what's going on a global scope, as well as what's going on the local level. And that's what I'm going to speak to, is more the local level. So I am the supervisor for the Colorado Springs Police Department's Human Trafficking Unit. We got started right at the beginning of last year, so basically January of 2014, we went live as a unit. And that basically meant that I got 2 detectives assigned to me to help me combat human trafficking. And at this point, we're kind of going, okay, what does this look like? What exactly is the problem that we're dealing with here? We did a lot of training last year to learn more about the scope and the investigative tools that we would need to combat human trafficking on the local level. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump to the PowerPoint here. So human trafficking, essentially, we know modern day slavery, right? We have somebody working for somebody else's benefit, where these girls, and I'm going to say girls throughout this when I'm referring to the victims, because that is the majority of our victims. However, we have assisted young men who have been victims, and we've assisted transgendered individuals who are victims as well. But we have these victims out there that are working, doing acts that they are basically forced, tricked, manipulated into doing, and then giving a large percentage, if not 100% of the money to somebody else for their benefit. So essentially by that paradigm, we are looking at kind of a modern day slavery example here. It is the world's second most profitable and fastest growing illegal trade, right behind the drug trade. And it's actually moving up on the drug trade, is gaining on the #1 position there. 79% of human trafficking is sexual exploitation. When we talk human trafficking, we're talking this big kind of global umbrella term that encompasses organ smuggling, labor trafficking, smuggling of people across borders, and of course the sex trafficking. For our unit, because it's me and 2 detectives, we kind of had to pick our battle and figure out what we were going to focus on, and we elected to focus on the sex trafficking aspect, since that is the largest percentage here. Beyond just sex trafficking, we are focusing on juvenile sex trafficking, is what we have as our primary goal. Now within that, within those investigations into the juvenile commercial sex trafficking worker, we also encounter pimps, we encounter johns, and of course we encounter adult victims as well. And we tackle the entire problem as best we can. So with that said, sex trafficking being that annual billion-dollar industry, we know that over 100,000 children estimated to be involved in sex trafficking in the United States today. That's a large amount of our youth here in the United States who are involved in this. And actually, this number, in trying to figure out how they determine this number, in all honesty, it's not really a solid number. I think that that number is probably actually higher than what we've listed here. Talked about that bottom point there, so. Again, human trafficking, when someone is forced, coerced, tricked to work for the profit of someone else, like I said earlier, we know that that's kind of the definition that we're going off of here. So when accepting that as kind of that model for a slavery definition, we can see that there are more sex slaves, more people involved in the commercial sex industry in that position than there ever has been before in history. So it's a very large number of people being victimized here. In the majority of the cases here in the United States anyway, the human trafficking looks like prostitution. And with that, I will say that there are a lot of organizations, a lot of police departments out there that are kind of missing the boat on human trafficking. I know that we were an organization that was kind of missing the boat as well, because prior to the formation of the human trafficking unit, prostitution was dealt with by a narcotics team that was basically a side job that, hey, when you get a couple minutes, go out, bust some prostitutes, see what kind of information you can get on dope, and then go in and chase the dope case. So again, kind of re-victimizing these girls from a different angle and using them again for something else that's not assisting them, not helping them get out of the lifestyle that they're in. I will say that with the girls that we've contacted, there's been only 2, I believe, thus far that have not been under pimp control. So the vast majority of girls that we're dealing with, be it juveniles, be it adults, have some form of pimp control, somebody who is coercing them to engage in this activity. There's no lines drawn as far as where the victims come from, socioeconomic status, gender, race, anything. All those lines are gone when we're dealing with this. Anybody is potential for a victim here. Especially vulnerable, though, are children, our kids who run away from home. We know that 1/3 of all runaways are going to be contacted by a trafficker within 48 hours of being gone. And then what happens when they run away and they stay gone for an extended period of time? They have needs: food, shelter, clothing, if they're addicted to drugs, things like that. So they engage in something called survival sex, where they're basically doing something, they're engaging in sexual activity for a thing of value, be it that food, be it that shelter, be it whatever it is. So it puts them in a very vulnerable position where they are able to be trafficked and controlled and manipulated very quickly. Between 1.3 to 2.8 million runaways in the United States annually. So if we look at this and we break that down to 1/3 of them are going to be approached by traffickers within 48 hours, we can see that number I talked about earlier with the 100,000 children being involved in sex trafficking is, again, probably low, because this is a big pool of potential victims that these predators, these traffickers can draw from. So when we talk about human trafficking, and I will admit that I was one of these people as well, that when we talk about human trafficking, you kind of get this idea that it is something that is Southeast Asia, it's something that occurs in other parts of the world. And I know that when my eyes were open to what was going on here locally and I was talking to my staff about it, they're going, do we really have human trafficking here in Colorado Springs? And I'm saying, yes, we do. And it's a problem that we need to address, because it's very easy to think that it exists somewhere else, kind of that not in my backyard philosophy, but it is occurring here. One of the big things, and the reason I put this up here, we all know I-25 runs up and down the Front Range. This is a very popular track for our local girls to be working, where they'll work from Pueblo to Colorado Springs to Denver to Fort Collins. And they kind of jump those cities, so they go up and down. And if they collect a couple tickets in one place, they move to another place. So they're just kind of going back and forth up and down the Front Range. There is the track. Now there are other tracks that girls get on that take them through the Southwest, take them across the entire country. But this is a very popular track that we see. So we have partnered with agencies up and down the Front Range to share information regarding the traffickers, regarding the girls, regarding what's happening within this corridor, because it is very widely used. Where does it occur? Brothels? Yeah. Do we have brothels here in Colorado Springs? We do. We have actually investigated houses, places that have been set up for commercial sex trade to take place. That is the sole function of this particular house or apartment, is it's just a place for girls to bring Johns back to and engage in commercial sex. So yes, we've had those, we have investigated those, they are here. Massage parlors. We have an inordinate amount of massage parlors in Colorado Springs. We actually have 33 massage parlors between the city and the county. That's a lot for a city our size. Tucson, Arizona, by comparison, roughly about the same size as us, has 6. So we have a lot of massage parlors here in town. There are legitimate massage parlors. I'm not going to say that all of them are engaging in commercial sex, but the ones that we're investigating, I'm a little bit leery to say 100% of the time, but the vast majority of the time that we go and do a raid on an Asian massage parlor, we are getting a sex deal. And it's full service sex that we're getting out of there. So the vast majority of the time we are seeing that. It is there, it is occurring. We know that these places have brought women over from China, from Korea. We actually had a Mexican massage parlor where they were bringing the girls up from Mexico. So we do see some of that labor trafficking combined with sex trafficking in this area. Strip clubs. By comparison, we have 2 strip clubs in Colorado Springs. Is there sex trafficking going on there? Yes, there is. There's people who are doing work for their pimps and stuff like that in the strip clubs. But one of the really interesting pieces that we found in doing investigation, we had a couple of girls who at 14 and 15 years old were taken into the strip clubs to work as kind of part of the grooming process, where they were basically made to take their clothes off in front of men who they don't know, so they can start getting comfortable with doing that. So part of that grooming process with the strip clubs. And we found that to be kind of an interesting aspect of the grooming process and the trafficking that we're seeing locally. Street level prostitution, if you've been in Colorado Springs for any length of time, you recognize that as South Nevada. South Nevada used to be really the hub of prostitution and trafficking in Colorado Springs. Is there still the streetwalkers down there? Yes, there are. It's gone down dramatically though. And that's not anything that's unique to Colorado Springs. That's something that has been seen across the country, is the amount of girls who are out working the street corners, waving at the cars, trying to get the John's attention that way, has gone down. But it does still occur there. Our schools, kind of surprising. But one of our first girls that we encountered was 15 when we recovered her. She was recruited at school at the age of 14 by one of her friends. Her friend was working for her 20-something-year-old boyfriend, and they decided, well, you know, we could make a lot more money if you got some of your friends to work with us. So see if you can get some girls to work with you. So recruitment, we have seen that at the schools. And when we take into account that the average age for entry into sex trafficking used to be 13 down to 11 years old now, we're looking at middle school, high school level that some of this recruitment is taking place. A little bit shocking to me. Neighborhoods. Any neighborhood in any city is a potential location for sex trafficking to occur. The girls who do this kind of work, they do what's called in-calls and out-calls. And the differentiation there is what the girl does. So if the girl stays in at her location and the guys come to her, that's an in-call. If the girl goes out to the John's location, that's an out-call. A lot of girls do one or the other or both. But with the out-call, if the John makes the call to the girl, makes the date, requests her to come to his location, you can see that anywhere is a potential location. Any home, any apartment complex, any condo, any hotel, anywhere these girls will go to. So it is occurring throughout Colorado Springs, throughout really any neighborhood in any city in America. One of the big things that's changed the scope of trafficking has been the internet. And I have Backpage up here. If you don't know what Backpage is, good on you. Very proud of you for not knowing what Backpage is. If you do know what Backpage is, we need to talk. Backpage is basically a seedy Craigslist. Okay, it's organized very much the same as Craigslist. There are a wide variety of things for sale on there. We know that a lot of our stolen property finds its way on Backpage to be sold there. But there is an adult section where there is escorts. And you can see here, if you look up at the top in the blue lines there, you'll see that Backpage has specific pages for Boulder, Colorado Springs, Denver, Fort Collins, Pueblo, General Rockies, and the Western Slope. But Colorado Springs does have its own section on Backpage for escorts. So the girls post here, and basically they are doing so under the thin veil that escorting is a legal activity. Actually, the city of Colorado Springs will issue escorting licenses. We've issued one. That's it. So the vast majority of these girls are not operating as legitimate escorts, but they post here, and the advertisements, if you were to look at them, it's not hard to see what they're selling, and it's not companionship. So, but that Backpage is not unique. There are a bunch of other sites out there that the girls use, the traffickers use. And we actually take a look at pretty much all the websites that we can find for those. And anytime we find a new website, we kind of let the other agencies in the area know, and we start investigating that as well. But Backpage has really changed the way that trafficking is done. So when we look at the triangle, kind of this economic model for trafficking, we have the supply, the demand, the distribution. Supply is the girls, the victims who are brought into this. Demand is going to be the Johns, who are the consumers of the commercial sex industry. Distribution is basically handled by the traffickers or the pimps. So within this framework, we as a unit try to attack every side of that triangle. So with our girls, with our supply, we try to get in contact with them, and we try to offer them recovery services. We are not a unit that wants to go out there and just see how many tickets we can write, how many people we can arrest for prostitution, and let it be done at that point. We're actually a recovery-driven unit, not an arrest-driven unit. Thank you. So we try to offer as many opportunities as we can to these girls, to these victims, to get out of the life. Now, of course, we aren't 100% successful with that, but every success we have keeps fueling our fire and keeps us going. With the demand side, if you guys are Colorado Springs locals, you may have seen that we are doing John deployments where we are specifically targeting Johns. We actually just finished with a big operation, a national operation that the FBI coordinates every year called Operation Cross Country. And that is a week-long event that is focused on impacting the juvenile commercial sex industry. We did numerous deployments during that week. We had a very successful week. And I will say that the Denver FBI field office, which is the field office that we fall under, for the last 2 years, last year and this year, we've recovered more juveniles than any other city in the nation. So, in order to kind of focus on the demand piece for this, we actually did an operation that we termed a predator operation. And what we did there was we posted an ad that was suggestive of an underage escort. Because Backpage, we can't post that we're 13 or 14 years old on Backpage. They won't allow those. It has to be 18 or over. So we post an ad that looks like it's probably fairly young. When the men call and try to make a date, we basically tell them, hey, just so you know, the girl in the ad, she's 13, but you're good with that, right? And it was amazing how many of the guys went, absolutely. The younger, the better. And I'm saying, okay, come to me. Let's meet. So we actually arrested 8 men during Operation Cross Country for soliciting a prostituted child, which is a felony level crime. With the soliciting a prostituted adult, it's a third-class misdemeanor. Large disparity there. Third-class misdemeanor, basically $50, don't do it again, is what happens there. And of course, the problem, the issue, the reason that we address the Johns on the adult level as well is because if a girl posts, say she's 14, 15 years old, but she posts that she's 20, 21, whatever, the John looks at the pictures, he makes a date, he comes to her hotel room, she kind of looks like maybe she's 19, 20, 21 years old. He goes ahead and has sex with her. Guess what? Legal system doesn't care what she posted her age as. Doesn't care what she told the John her age is. Doesn't care how old the John thought she was. Doesn't care if the John says, hey, how old are you? Oh, I'm 22. Okay, great. All they care about is what is the age of the girl. So when we find those Johns that have solicited a prostituted child, maybe unbeknownst to them, they still get hit with the felony level charge. So we're trying to impact that as well. You guys are great. And then the distribution piece, of course, we do investigate the traffickers, the pimps. And as much as we can, we try to get them arrested because we know that when we can impact them, we are impacting the group of girls who work for them, because most of the traffickers don't have just one victim. They'll have typically like 6 to 8 victims who they're getting to work for them. They're oftentimes setting quotas on the girls, maybe $1 quota, you have to make this much money every night, or you have to go out and have 6 to 8 dates per night, or whatever the quota may be. And then they get the money off of that. And the girls know that if they don't meet that quota, that there is retribution. There's punishment, there's being locked into a dog kennel, they're maybe being beaten by electric cords, things like that, but there is ramifications for not making the quota. So the girls do what they can to make the quota, to keep the pimp happy, to keep him making money, to keep him off of her back. So we do those investigations as well, and as much as we can, we try to arrest the pimps. So this is a typical Backpage ad. This is actually an ad that we posted. This is one for Kelsey that we posted really pretty much for research purposes. We just kind of wanted to see what the general response would be to this. And just in case you're wondering, that's not me. But this is what a typical Backpage ad looks like. You see our rates up there. For a half hour, it's $110. For an hour, it's $200. For a quick visit, it's $60. We've noticed that a lot of girls do offer military specials here in Colorado Springs. In all honesty, the military is not disproportionately represented in our arrests. They represent about the same amount of population that we have. So not a huge disproportionate amount there. But we posted this ad, and we didn't respond to any of the guys who called for this. We were just collecting statistics off of this. Now, just so you guys kind of understand what the demand for commercial sex is in Colorado Springs, we had our intern count up the ads. So between September 1st of this year and September 14th of this year, she counted up all the ads in Colorado Springs and Denver. And for Colorado Springs, we averaged just over 100 posts per day. That's all. Well, just over 100 individual girls posting on Backpage every day that they are available for commercialized sex. So over that 14-day period, we had just over 1,500 ads posted in Colorado Springs. That's a big demand. Now, what I'll tell you is when we do these John stings, when we put up our ad that looks like this, looks like every other Backpage ad, within 30 seconds to a minute, we start getting phone calls. And we get phone calls the entire time we're doing our operation. It doesn't slow down. So what does that tell you about the demand? If we have just over 100 girls a day on average posting on Backpage, and they are getting the same kind of response we're getting, that they are constantly getting called within 30 seconds to a minute of the ad going live, and the entire time that the ad is posted, that tells me there's a very strong demand for commercial sex in our city. So we're trying to impact that. Here's what we found. We have the ad active for about just over 2 months, about 2.5 months. And we found that we got 651 calls or texts from 163 individuals. Now remember, we didn't repost this ad during this time. We put it up one time and left it there. And that was it. So among all the, on average, just over 100 ads per day, we got 651 calls from 163 different people. And you can see here, maybe not so great, but in the gray parts, you can see the times that we're getting calls. It was around the clock. It was at 6 a.m., it was 8 a.m., it was at noon for the lunch break, it was right after work, it's at 2 a.m., it's at 4 a.m. I mean, it's around the clock that there's demand for this. So we found this to be very interesting as a research tool, just to see what kind of response we would get on a single ad over a period of time and what time of day we were getting called, and it was constant. So for the traffickers, it is a very lucrative industry. They're making a lot of money off of these girls. Sometimes in the neighborhood of $2,000 to $3,000 a night per girl. So if they've got 6 girls working for them, they're making a lot of money. And the big benefit here is they can do this from the comfort of their hotel room, their house, their apartment, wherever they happen to be. All they have to do is post an ad online, put it up, put their phone number on it. The guys are calling or texting the pimp, and he's making the dates for the girls from his house, and then dispatching the girls. This is where you're going to go. This is how much time you're going to spend. This is how much money you're going to make. Bring it back to me when you're done, kind of thing. So there's not this drug nexus where these guys are out making hand-to-hand contacts that police can see. They're not having to try to, when they run out of their dope to sell, they're not having to try to find more to resource, re-up, and have more dope. All they're doing is selling girls. So how hard is this for police to see this, that we see a girl leave a hotel room or leave an apartment complex, drive to somebody else's house, get out and walk in? What's to investigate there? It's very difficult. It's very easy for this to go and exist just subsurface where we don't see it because there's not a whole lot to see unless you really know what you're looking for. So the idea of very high benefit, very low risk. And that's what these guys see. They're making a lot of money, and prior to our unit, they weren't really being investigated. It was pretty safe to do. They have the dependency of the victims. They basically sell these girls on the idea that without them, these girls are nothing. That they're not going to be able to survive without their pimp. And these are some excerpts from this website called pimpfeet.com, which is basically a website by pimps for pimps, pimping 101 kind of thing. But this kind of shows the idea, the mindset that these guys have. The point of a pimp is to civilize, and excuse my language, civilize bitches enough so that they can whore themselves to tricks with money. It's to stop a lot of you useless, can't even hold a job longer than 3 months, only dreamed of being with the biggest dope boy or the best high school ball player in your city, had 3 abortion bitches from wasting your youth doing nonsense. And the bottom one here really sums it up. The reason why pimps take all the money is because most of y'all bitches can't handle responsibilities. That's why y'all hoe in the first place. Y'all ain't good for school, y'all ain't good with jobs, y'all have no life skills whatsoever. And that's what they sell to these girls. The girls have oftentimes very low self-esteem. They may have mental issues, they may have problems with the family where they don't have a strong family unit, and they're looking to bond with somebody, with something who gives them some sense of value. And these guys, even though they're saying all this, they're also taking them out to get their hair done, get their nails done, do things to basically make their product more sellable is how they look at it. But the girls see, I have somebody taking care of me. So even though they're selling this, and even though this is what the girls are believing, there is a piece where the girls feel like they're being taken care of. So this whole idea is what keeps these girls with them, because they go, you know, I did drop out of high school. If I wasn't with this guy, I don't know what I'd be doing for money because I have no life skills. I have no marketable skills to bring forward. And we're trying to change that for these girls. So, but you can see here what that looks like. This concept of the girls have to be loyal and having a family unit and some kind of an identifying mark. The pimps like to mark their girls oftentimes so that they can kind of lay a claim to the girl. It also makes it hard for other pimps to steal their girls from them. So this whole concept here, this girl, Morgan Noleone is how she's known. We also have this girl, Jackie Noleone. They're not related. It's the pimp's last name that they're all taking for that family unit kind of thing. But you see here with Jackie, you see the dermals, the jewelry on the side of her face here. You also notice that this girl here, Jessica, again, no Leon, she has those as well, right here. You can see them on the side of her face. And this is what her pimp says about her. She's dedicated, loyal, and 10 toes down for her crown. She's his Sarah Lee. She's a white bitch that can make bread. That's what he feels about her. That's what she's good for. And this is the pimp. Look again, the dermals. So this is kind of a common thing between his girls, that he has them all take his name, no Leon, and put those dermals on so that they are identified as belonging to him. Another way that the pimps do that is through tattoos. And you can see some of these tattoos. The daddy's girl tattoo over there, that's daddy. Oftentimes the pimps like to be called daddy. They like to be seen as the father figure, the male role model, the leader of the family. So that daddy's girl refers to, she's the pimp's favorite, or at least was at the time that she got the tattoo. And then you see down here, property of M. Fenton. That's the pimp's name. So she's just property. She belongs to him. The Whore Life tattoo there, that's pretty self-explanatory. The one that really gets me though is this barcode tattoo. Because what do we put barcodes on? Products, things for sale, right? And that's what this girl is. How dehumanizing is that, to have a barcode on you and be just something that is for sale? It just, it breaks my heart to see that tattoo every time I look at it. So for the women here, kind of peeling off that label of prostitution is what we're looking to do. No sex worker is immune from a trafficker. We do have girls who try to go out and be independent, try to work for themselves, but they're approached by traffickers. When we post ads on Backpage, we oftentimes get calls from guys who are offering their services to help us manage and things like that. But they will be typically approached by a trafficker, and oftentimes will go under a trafficker. There's this fantasy that this is the pretty woman concept, right? Pretty woman, if you look at it, if you boil it down, it's not boy meets girl, it's boy buys girl, right? And that's what we're looking at here. These girls are selling that same fantasy. When they're posting on Backpage, they oftentimes put 100% independent. Why? Because it's not sexy to put 100% pimp controlled. No guy's gonna buy that, right? That's not the fantasy. So they're selling this fantasy, this kind of pretty woman fantasy here. There's been the idea, and I've heard it numerous times, and it just boils my blood every time I hear it, that prostitution's a victimless crime. Let's just legalize it, tax it, make a lot of money. It's not a victimless crime. Not by any stretch of the imagination is it a victimless crime. Up to 2/3 of prostitutes have been abused as children. Again, through our experiences, I would say that number should be much higher. We have probably 90% or better of our girls that have some kind of abuse, be it sexual abuse, molestation, physical abuse when they were children. A lot of them have drug dependencies, mental illness. Many of them have been threatened to death by traffickers where they honestly believe that there is a good chance they may die. Up to 50% have contemplated or attempted suicide. They feel that there's no way out. Without the trafficker, they are nothing, but they don't want to be here. So how do I get out? Suicide becomes kind of an option that they start considering. It's 51 times more dangerous than working in a liquor store at night. That's kind of widely considered the most dangerous occupation to have, is working at a liquor store at night. If we consider prostitution as an occupation, as a career field, is by far the most violent and dangerous career field out there. Not a victimless crime. 89% want to escape the work. Of course, many of them will say that they love doing what they're doing, things like that, because that's what they're being told to say by the pimp. That's the fantasy, right? It's just girls going out there who like to have sex, make a little money, what's the harm? Well, 89% want to get out, they just don't know how. So we're trying to provide that as well. 61% need health care, 76% need some kind of job training. For the demand side of this, one of the things that we've started doing is publishing the photos of our Johns. It's a little bit controversial. Thank you. I have no idea how much I appreciate that, because this has been a little bit controversial for us. There are kind of the positive and negative sides of doing this. We feel the positives do outweigh the negatives, because this is what the Johns really care about. They don't want their pictures in the paper. They don't want their pictures online. So that $50 and don't do it again, believe it or not, isn't much of a motivation for them to stop doing what they're doing. However, when they know that they're going to get their pictures posted, all of a sudden they're scared. We do surf John websites and watch those. The day after this went up, I started looking at the John websites and found a post from a guy that summed everything up, where he said, Colorado Springs used to be a safe place to do this. If they're going to start putting pictures in the paper, I'm out. And I went, that's what I'm doing. We have no plans to change this at all. We just kind of save up batches and we release them in batches. So one of the great things is our city attorney's office and our district attorney's office are really behind us in this, in that they are not giving plea agreements for soliciting a prostitute. The plea agreement is plead guilty to the charge or we'll see you in court. And that's it. So very good from them. We're getting that kind of support.